Could Miami have secretly just pulled off the most massive steal of the entire draft with a defensive rookie destined for legendary status? ESPN certainly thinks so, naming not one, not two, but three mid to late round Miami draft picks who are absolutely about to shock the entire league. Get ready, because the dramatic reshaping of this entire franchise is happening right in front of our eyes, and these three incredible rookies are leading the absolute charge. If you are as hyped for this massive new era of Miami football as I am, absolutely smash that like button, share this video everywhere, and subscribe to the channel right now. Let us talk about the guy who has everyone's jaw on the floor right now. Yates over at ESPN just released his list of instant impact rookies taken between rounds 2 and 7, and Miami completely dominated the conversation. And at the very top of that mountain is the 43rd overall pick, Jacob Rodriguez. I cannot even begin to describe how intensely excited I am about this kid. Yates pointed out that absolutely no one boosted their draft stock quite like Rodriguez did, and when you look at the grueling game tape, it is so incredibly obvious why. But honestly, how often does a mid-round linebacker step onto the professional field and instantly look like he has been playing in the league for a decade? Rodriguez is not just a good prospect. He is an absolute, undeniable phenom. He plays with this insanely rangy, hyper-instinctive, and flat-out brilliant style of football that you simply cannot teach. We are talking about a guy who possesses a completely rare, almost supernatural ability to relentlessly take the football away from the opposing offense. Just think about this for a second. Really let it sink in. 11 total turnovers forced by a linebacker in a single college season. He ripped out 4 interceptions and forced a staggering 7 fumbles last year alone. That is not just a good stat line. That is borderline insane and utterly destructive. It is exactly why he was literally a Heisman Trophy candidate as a strictly defensive player, which is nearly impossible to pull off in today's deeply offensive modern era of football. Miami is completely rebuilding from the absolute ground floor up, but envisioning Jacob Rodriguez lining up right next to a proven, battle-tested veteran stud like Jordan Brooks is enough to give any diehard football fan massive chills. Rodriguez is going to step right into that locker room and instantly become the absolute heartbeat of this defense. I have zero doubt in my deeply rooted football soul that he is going to wear the green dot, command the middle linebacker spot, and be named a revered team captain as a mere rookie. He is simply that phenomenal of a football player. When you hear him talk at the recent rookie minicamp, calling the facility completely insane and emphasizing his humble desire to learn his role for the absolute good of the team, you just know his maturity level is completely off the charts. I am throwing down a massive, potentially controversial prediction right here, right now. I truly believe Jacob Rodriguez is going to win the Defensive Rookie of the Year award. Look at the storied history of that specific award over the last 10 years. It usually goes to a completely dominant edge rusher or an insanely versatile linebacker who makes electrifying plays all over the open field. Well, Rodriguez is going to see a monstrous snap count, quite possibly the highest of any rookie defender in the entire league. Under the brilliant mind of defensive coordinator Jeff Hafley, this kid is going to be unleashed to wreak absolute, unmitigated havoc everywhere. The hype is astronomically high right now, and let me tell you, it is entirely, completely justified. Now, let us drastically shift gears and talk about the highly volatile offensive side of the ball, because this specific situation is absolutely wild. Miami arguably has the absolute thinnest, most terrifyingly bare wide receiver room in the entire professional league. Because of that massive, glaring void, the 75th overall pick, Caleb Douglas, has the absolute golden opportunity of a lifetime sitting right in front of him. Yates chose to heavily highlight Douglas over fellow third-round pick Chris Bell, who is unfortunately still battling back aggressively from a devastating ACL tear. Douglas brings an incredibly intriguing physical profile to the offensive table. Standing at an imposing 6 feet 3 inches and weighing in at a rock-solid 206 pounds, he looks like a classic, terrifying perimeter monster. But the crazy, unexpected thing is, Texas Tech actually utilized his unique frame as a big slot receiver last year. Combine that massive bodily frame with absolute blazing, undeniable track star speed, and you have a completely terrifying offensive weapon who could very well crack the starting lineup on the very first day of the season. Let's pause for our question of the day. Do you think drafting Caleb Douglas in the 3rd round was a massive reach? Or is his blazing speed going to prove all the doubters and haters absolutely wrong? Drop a comment below right now and let me know your brutally honest take. I am certainly not going to sugarcoat things here for you guys. I was extremely, loudly critical when this draft pick was officially announced. I openly admitted that I would have vastly preferred guys like Chris Brazzell or Ted Hurst in that exact draft spot, especially considering exactly how the draft board ultimately fell. But we have to deal strictly with reality, and the absolute reality is that Caleb Douglas has a completely unimpeded, wide-open path to becoming a day-one starter. Outside of journeyman veterans like Jalen Tolbert and Tutu Atwell, who have absolutely had brief, exciting flashes in the past but hold absolutely no guaranteed future, there is nobody blocking Douglas from becoming the primary X receiver for this offense. But there is a massively frustrating, glaring catch that we have to discuss. Caleb Douglas absolutely has to fix his hands. I am talking about an absolute priority, extreme red alert situation. He dropped the football 7 agonizing times out of 54 targets last year. That is a completely unacceptable drop rate at the professional level. Even looking way back to his freshman year in 2022, dropping 2 out of 10 passes is incredibly concerning. He openly admitted at minicamp that his focus and intense attention to detail must completely and drastically improve immediately. If he can successfully solve that dreaded drop issue and learn how to forcefully beat aggressive press coverage right off the line of scrimmage, his ultimate ceiling is utterly terrifying for opposing defenses. He is a pure, unadulterated vertical threat specifically designed to completely stretch the defense to its absolute breaking point. Looking deeply at his specific route tree from last year, he ran a massive amount of deep go routes and crossing dig routes. Even though those were his most frequently run routes by far, they actually resulted in his lowest overall success rates. Ironically enough, he had a flawless, completely perfect 100% success rate on comebacks, corner routes, and deep post routes, despite running them far less often. He simply has to learn to heavily sink his hips better, relentlessly refine his route breaks, and truly become a pure technician. If he accomplishes that, his sheer, uncatchable speed will force opposing safeties to play drastically deeper, automatically creating enormous chunks of space in the underneath passing game. Finally, we completely have to dive into the absolute hidden gem and massive steal of the draft, the 138th overall pick, Kyle Lewis. Field Yates was absolutely glowing and bursting with praise when talking about this guy, explicitly calling him one of his absolute favorite players in the entire draft class. When you sit down and turn on the tape, Kyle Lewis is completely everywhere all at once. He might not be built like a traditional, hulking, massive linebacker, but my goodness, this kid can absolutely fly all over the turf, and he is a total, inescapable nightmare in pass coverage. He is absolutely going to carve out a massive, highly impactful role instantly, whether that is lining up at the weak side linebacker position or operating as a violently hard-hitting box safety. Jeff Hafley is the exact type of defensive mastermind who knows exactly how to perfectly weaponize a completely unique, highly versatile skill set exactly like Lewis profoundly possesses. The sheer on-field production is completely undeniable. He racked up an absolutely staggering 100 tackles last season. And if you dare to ever question his coverage abilities, just go aggressively turn on his game film from the 2024 season. He was absolutely blanketing opposing pass catchers like it was nothing. It was genuinely elite-level, flawless tape. What makes this entire situation drastically more exciting is the undeniable, deeply rooted chemistry he already heavily shares with Jacob Rodriguez. These two absolute gridiron warriors played together directly on the national team down at the highly prestigious Senior Bowl in Mobile, Alabama. That specific week is exactly where both of these phenomenal guys sent their draft stock absolutely skyrocketing straight into the outer stratosphere. Even brilliant, highly respected football minds like Louis Riddick were completely raving about how perfectly these two fiercely complement each other on the field. They are both incredibly smart, fiercely tough, and ridiculously hard-nosed football players who heavily excel in coverage and violently fly directly to the football. When you step back and look at this entire defense, the linebacker unit has completely transformed into the most highly optimistic and fiercely exciting positional group on the entire roster. You have an established, elite, hard-hitting veteran in Jordan Brooks leading the absolute way, and now you are injecting these two incredibly hungry, highly talented rookies directly into the chaotic mix. The absolute potential for this defensive core is entirely off the charts, not just for this highly anticipated upcoming season, but for years and years down the line. This entire roster has completely undergone a massively unimaginable, completely unrecognizable total overhaul. Miami aggressively drafted an incredible 13 players and completely gutted the old guard of the team. The specific roster you are going to see fiercely battle on the field this year will look absolutely nothing like the sluggish product from last season. We are absolutely going to be witnessing a massive, highly energetic influx of youth taking the field immediately. Beyond the three incredible absolute studs we just broke down in meticulous detail, you have completely hungry guys like Caden Proctor, Chris Johnson, Chris Bell, Kevin Coleman Jr., Trey Moore, and possibly even Max Llewellyn fighting fiercely and aggressively for vital snaps as a rotational edge rusher. This entire youth movement is absolutely electric. It is completely undeniable, and I am entirely here for every single thrilling second of it. The ultimate ceiling for these intensely young athletes is unbelievably high, and the entire league is entirely on immediate notice. It is a completely new dawn for this entire franchise, and I absolutely cannot wait to see these rookies completely dominate the gridiron.